My name is Nora Caldwell, and I was 32 years old the year I learned exactly what a manila folder could do to a family. Not the folder itself, of course, just the papers inside, the signatures, the dates. The one-page letter my grandmother wrote in her own shaking hand 14 months before she forgot how to sign her name. You see, my family thought they had it all figured out. They thought they could wait until an old woman's memory faded, slip some documents under her nose, and walk away with a house worth nearly $700,000. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I wouldn't fight. They forgot one thing. I'm the one who reads the fine print. I'm the paralegal who studies for the bar at night while they post ski goggle selfies to church group chats. And when you underestimate the quiet one, that's when you lose everything. If you're here for stories about ordinary people who set quiet boundaries and watch karma do its thing, hit that subscribe button right now because this one gets ugly before it gets beautiful. My grandmother Lorraine turned 79 on a Saturday in October, and like she'd done every single year since before I was born, she baked her own cake. Vanilla with buttercream roses, her specialty, the same recipe she'd used for my father's birthday parties, for my wedding shower, for the afternoon I graduated high school. She set the table for 8 people, the good plates that only came out for Thanksgiving, the dried hydrangeas she'd clipped from her garden back in August and hung upside down in the laundry room, the cloth napkins she'd ironed herself even though her hands shook. She wore her lavender cardigan, the one with the pearl buttons, and she arranged the candles in a little circle around the number 79 spelled out in pink gel. Then she sat down, and she waited. My parents were in Aspen, Colorado, skiing. My father didn't text at all. My mother posted a ski goggle selfie to her church group chat with the single word, blessed. My brother Aaron sent a message at 4:15 in the afternoon. Happy B-Day, Gran. Skiing is amazing. No phone call. No flowers. No 3-hour drive. Just a text with a period at the end because he couldn't even be bothered to use an exclamation point. I was in Hartford working a shift at a 4-person elder law firm. Wills, trusts, guardianship filings. Nothing glamorous. $47,000 a year, and I studied for the bar exam at night while my brother drove a German sedan that cost more than my annual salary. My family called me the paperwork one at holiday dinners. My mother would tilt her head and say, Nora is still doing her little legal assistant thing, like I was selling friendship bracelets at a farmer's market. But that night, after I saw my brother's text, I clocked out early. I grabbed a gas station bouquet from the mobile on the corner, the one with the wilted baby's breath and the cellophane crinkled at the edges. Then I got on I-95 and drove 3 hours through the dark, the oaks arching over the back roads of Briarwood like a cathedral ceiling. I pulled into her gravel driveway at 8:12 p.m. The porch light was on. Every other window in that house was dark. And I knew before I even opened the door that nobody else had come. Inside, the kitchen table told me everything I needed to know. 8 place settings, 8 napkins folded into little fans, a centerpiece of dried hydrangeas she'd arranged that morning while the coffee brewed. And the cake, that beautiful vanilla cake with the buttercream roses, sat right in the middle of it all, the candles burned down to waxy nubs stuck deep into the frosting like little gravestones. A gallon of Neapolitan ice cream had sweated through its cardboard carton onto the tablecloth, leaving a wet ring that would stain permanent. And there she was, my grandmother, sitting at the head of the table in that lavender cardigan, her hands folded around a glass of water, her reading glasses pushed up into her white hair. She looked at me like she wasn't sure I was real. Nora, she said. Is it Tuesday? It's Saturday, Gran, your birthday. She touched the cake with one finger, confused. Oh, she said. I thought I was making this for the church bake sale. That's when my heart broke into about 1 million little pieces. I didn't fix her a plate. I didn't get a fork. I just broke off a piece of that cake with my fingers and handed it to her. She took it. She ate it. And then we both sat there at that table, 2 grown women eating birthday cake with our bare hands, because neither one of us felt like washing dishes. I sang happy birthday to her twice. The first time, she forgot the words halfway through and just hummed along. The second time, she asked me to start over, because she said she wanted to hear it Right. So I did. I sang it again, slow and loud in that empty kitchen with the melted candles and the sweating ice cream and the 8 empty chairs. At 10 o'clock, I carried her to bed. She weighed nothing. Her wrist was the width of a paper towel roll. As I pulled the quilt up to her chin, she grabbed my hand. Her eyes went sharp all of a sudden, focused, like a radio catching a signal through static. "They think I don't notice," she whispered. I waited for more. She was already asleep. "Let me stop here and tell you who I am in the Caldwell family because it matters." The Caldwells of Briarwood, Connecticut, are a particular kind of comfortable, the kind that doesn't talk about money because they don't have to. My father, Gregory, managed regional accounts for an insurance brokerage until he could golf 3 times a week and call it consulting. My mother, Diane, organized charity galas and sat on the library board. My brother, Aaron, ran something called Aaron Caldwell Properties, a small construction development firm that made him feel like a big deal. He drove a German sedan, wore tailored sport coats, and talked about balloon payments like the rest of us were supposed to be impressed. Then there's me, the paralegal, the one who reads fine print, the one who drives a Honda with a cracked taillight and lives in a 1-bedroom apartment in Hartford. At holiday dinners, my mother would tilt her head and say, "Nora is still doing her little legal assistant thing," like I was selling friendship bracelets. I never argued. I just watched. And I remembered. That's what the quiet ones do. We remember. But this house on Oakwood Lane, was mine in every way that mattered and no way that counted. I took my first steps on the kitchen linoleum. Lorraine taught me to read Elise on the back porch when I was 19, her reading glasses perched on her nose, a red pen between her teeth while she explained the difference between a security deposit and a non-refundable fee. She co-signed my first apartment because my parents wouldn't. "You're not a risk, Nora," she'd said. "You're an investment." I slept in the guest room that night after her birthday, the room with the ceiling crack I'd traced since I was 6 years old. Around midnight, I got up for water, and on the hallway shelf, behind a framed family photo, I found something that made my stomach drop. A business card. Brenda Voss, Voss and Dean Realty. On the back, handwritten in my father's block letters, comp value $680,000. Quick close possible. I put the card back. My hands were steady, but my stomach wasn't. Sunday morning came cold and gray. I scrubbed the kitchen while Lorraine dozed in her recliner. The cake went into Tupperware. The melted candles went into the trash. I wiped buttercream off the good plates and stacked them in the cabinet where they'd sit until whoever came to clear out the house someday. That thought landed wrong. I shoved it aside. At 10:15 a.m., someone knocked. 2 people stood on the porch. A woman, about 60, silver bob, wool coat, leather briefcase, professional in that quiet, expensive way. A man beside her, younger, maybe 40, carrying a notary seal in a zippered pouch. "Nora Caldwell?" the woman asked. "Yes." "My name is Ruth Adler. This is my colleague Nathan Pewitt. Your grandmother retained my firm 14 months ago." She held out a manila folder, thick, sealed with a wax paper flap. My grandmother's name printed on the tab in blue ink. She asked us to deliver this to you personally. When the time came. "When the time came for what?" I asked. Ruth glanced past me through the screen door, toward the recliner where Lorraine was sleeping. Her expression softened by exactly 1 degree, the kind of softening that comes from 20 years of elder law, from watching families tear each other apart over square footage. "Come to my office when you're ready," she said. She pressed a business card into my hand. "Don't discuss this with your parents before we talk." Then they were in their car and pulling away before I could form a second question. I stood on that porch holding the folder. It was heavier than it looked, maybe 40 pages. The seal had been signed across the flap in Lorraine's handwriting, looping and deliberate, the way she signed birthday cards and Christmas checks. My phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "Who is at the door?" "Don't sign anything, Nora." I turned the phone face down. I brought the folder inside. And I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where the birthday cake had sat untouched the night before, and ran my finger along that sealed flap. I broke the seal. Inside the folder, a stack of legal documents I recognized immediately from my work. A recorded deed, a trust instrument, a durable power of attorney, notarized, witnessed, signed in triplicate, a physician's letter on medical letterhead dated 14 months ago, and clipped to the front, a handwritten note on Lorraine's personal stationery, cream paper, blue ink, that same deliberate script I'd known my whole life. Nora, when they come for the house, open this. Everything you need is here. I love you. I'm sorry. It has to be you. I read that note 3 times. Each time the words, when they come for the house, landed harder. Not if, when. She'd known. 14 months ago, before the forgetting got bad, before she started calling me by my mother's name, before the wandering and the stove left on and the day she got lost driving to the post office 2 blocks away, she'd known someone would come for the house. And she'd prepared. She'd hired a lawyer. She'd signed documents. She'd left me instructions. She'd chosen me. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the guest room with the folder on the nightstand, watching the ceiling crack, listening to the house breathe. Monday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Something in me said to stay, and I found it while taking out the recycling, a lockbox. A realtor's combination lockbox clamped to the gas meter behind the hydrangea bushes, tucked just out of sight from the front walk. I knew what it was immediately. I'd seen them on every listing in Briarwood. Somebody had been showing this house. Somebody had been bringing strangers through Lorraine's kitchen while she slept in her recliner. I went back inside and opened the mail pile. 3 weeks of unsorted envelopes on the hallway table, buried between a phone bill and a coupon flyer for a pizza place that had closed in 2019. And there it was, a listing sheet, off-market, printed on Voss & Dean Realty letterhead. 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, original hardwood quarter-acre lot, listed at $680,000, $50,000 under the most recent comparable sale in the neighborhood. Then I checked the kitchen junk drawer. You know the one, where every family keeps the takeout menus and the dead batteries and the everything else. And I found the worst of it. A purchase agreement. Unsigned but filled in. Buyer, Stonewall Capital Group, LLC. Cash offer. 30-day close. The seller's signature line was left blank, but someone had penciled L. Caldwell in block letters below it, like a rehearsal, like a child practicing their signature before the real thing. The listing agent was Brenda Voss, the same Brenda Voss from the business card behind the family photo. The buyer's agent was some name I didn't recognize. But the seller's representative listed on the agreement? Aaron Caldwell, my brother. I sat on the kitchen floor with the linoleum cold under my legs and spread those pages around me like a paper mosaic. The lockbox. The listing sheet. The purchase agreement. Brenda's card. And then I found a sticky note in Diane's handwriting tucked inside a real estate brochure. Closing target, November 15th. That was 3 weeks away. I called my mother at 6 o'clock that evening. Oh, Nora. Diane's voice had that specific warmth, the one she used on parish volunteers and restaurant hostesses, and anyone she needed something from. Bright. Managing. How's Gran doing? We had the most wonderful time in Aspen. The snow was just divine. There's a lockbox on her gas meter, Mom. Silence. 2 seconds. 3. Then, sweetheart, that's being handled. Your father and Aaron have been working with a lovely agent to find a suitable transition plan for your grandmother. You know she can't keep up this big house on her own. There's a purchase agreement in her kitchen drawer, Mom. Her voice dropped 1 register. Nora, this is a family decision between your father, your brother, and me. We've been managing Gran's affairs for months. You don't need to worry about the details. She doesn't know the house is being sold, does she? Pause. The clink of a wine glass in the background. She knows what she needs to know. Nora, Aaron's company is in a difficult stretch. The house can fund a proper care facility for Gran and help your brother through a rough patch. It's the responsible thing. It's her house, Mom. That's when Diane dropped the warmth entirely, all the way down to the basement, cold, final. Nora, your grandmother has dementia. She leaves the stove on. She got lost driving to the post office 2 blocks away. She is not the person who should be making decisions about a $680,000 asset. Then she said it, the line I will remember on my deathbed. She won't remember the house by Christmas. The phone line hummed between us. I could hear her breathing. I could hear the wine glass clink again. And I said something I'd never said to my mother before. Then it's a good thing I remember. I hung up. I picked up the manila folder and Ruth Adler's business card. I held them side by side under the kitchen light. Tomorrow I would drive to Hartford. Tonight I had reading to do. And somewhere in the back of my mind, a voice that sounded exactly like my grandmother whispered, "That's my girl." Ruth Adler's office was on the 2nd floor of a converted brownstone on Asylum Avenue in Hartford. The waiting room had faded oriental rugs, framed diplomas from Yukon Law, and a small brass sign that read, Adler and Associates, Elder Law and Estate Planning. I'd called at 7:30 that morning. Her receptionist put me through in under a minute, which, if you know anything about law offices, tells you they were expecting the call. "Miss Caldwell," Ruth said, her voice that same measured calm from the porch. "I'm glad you reached out. Can you come in today?" I drove 3 hours again. Same highway. Same back roads. This time, no gas station bouquet. Just the manila folder on the passenger seat, weighing more than any folder should. Ruth met me in a conference room with a pot of Earl Grey tea and a box of tissues that she placed exactly between us on the table without comment. She didn't push the tissues toward me. She just set them there. Like she knew. Like she'd seen this movie before and knew exactly when the crying would start. "Your grandmother came to me 14 months ago," Ruth began. "Early August of last year. She'd had an episode, got disoriented driving, ended up 2 towns over, couldn't remember how to get home. A neighbor brought her back. She called me the next morning." Ruth paused. She already knew my firm. Her friend Dorothy had used us for a trust. But more than that, your grandmother came in alone. She was sharp, focused, scared. "Scared of what?" I asked. "Of exactly what's happening now." Ruth folded her hands on the table. She told me, word for word, my son will do whatever Diane tells him, and Diane will sell the house the minute I can't stop her. She wanted to stop it before she couldn't. I put my tea down. "She chose you, Miss Caldwell, specifically. She said you were the only one who would fight for the house because you were the only one who understood what it meant." Ruth opened her own copy of the folder. "Let me show you how she prepared." Ruth walked me through it piece by piece. 14 months ago, Lorraine had come to this office wearing pressed slacks and her pearl earrings, carrying a folder of her own, the deed to the house, tax records, her old will from 1998, a list of questions she'd handwritten on yellow legal paper in that same looping blue ink. She was methodical, Ruth said. She told me she'd noticed the forgetting, names first, then appointments, then the route to the post office. Her doctor had used the words early stage. She said she had maybe a year, maybe 2 before the window closed. The window for what? For making legally binding decisions while she still had capacity. Ruth turned to the first page of the trust instrument. She wanted 2 things. First, to protect the house. Second, to choose who would protect her when she couldn't protect herself. And she didn't choose my father. Ruth looked at me over her reading glasses. No, she did not. She said it without inflection. But the weight of it settled in my chest like a stone dropped into still water. My father, Lorraine's only child, the boy who grew up in that kitchen. She'd driven past him and gone straight to me. The legal architecture was clean. I recognized every instrument from my years of reviewing other people's documents. Item 1, irrevocable living trust. Lorraine had transferred the house, the deed, the title, everything, into the Lorraine E. Caldwell Revocable Living Trust, dated August 9th of last year. She was the trustee while she had capacity. I was the successor trustee. If she became incapacitated, legal control of the house passed to me. Not my father, Not Aaron. Me. Item 2. A durable power of attorney. Lorraine had named me her agent for all financial and healthcare decisions. The durability clause meant it survived her incapacity. It didn't expire when she got sick. It activated. Item 3. The physician's letter. Dr. Mercer, Lorraine's neurologist, had examined her on August 9th and documented that she demonstrated full testamentary capacity. She understood what a trust was. She understood what a power of attorney did. She understood she was placing her house beyond the reach of anyone except the granddaughter she trusted. So the house isn't hers anymore, I said. Technically correct, Ruth said. The house belongs to the trust. And under this structure, only the trustee can authorize a sale. The trustee is you. Then Ruth leaned forward. Miss Caldwell, there's something else you should know. If your family has had your grandmother sign anything recently, a new power of attorney, a listing agreement, anything, while she lacked capacity, those documents may not be enforceable. She let that sit. They may have had her sign something newer. That night, I searched Lorraine's house. Behind a stack of old guidepost magazines in the hallway credenza, I found what they'd had her sign. A power of attorney dated September 3rd, barely 2 months ago. It named Gregory Caldwell as Lorraine's agent for all financial and property decisions. Stapled to it was a listing authorization for the house, also dated September 3rd, granting Aaron Caldwell the right to act as seller's representative. I carried both documents to the kitchen table and laid them beside the originals from Ruth's folder. And that's when I saw it, the signature difference. Lorraine's trust documents from 14 months ago, strong pen pressure, loops clean and confident, every letter connecting to the next, that distinctive tail on the capital L, the September power of attorney, trembling lines. The L barely rose above the baseline. The loops collapsed. The pen had lifted between letters, leaving gaps where flow should be. This was not the hand of a woman who understood what she was signing. This was the hand of a woman who was told where to press down. I pulled up my phone calendar and checked the date. September 3rd. My stomach dropped. September 3rd was the same week Lorraine had been taken to the ER after a fall. I'd received a text from Diane. Gran took a tumble. Nothing serious. She's resting. I'd thought nothing of it. But now I found the discharge summary in the mail pile. It said in black and white, patient disoriented. Intermittent confusion. Recommend neurological follow-up. They'd had her sign a power of attorney during the same week she'd been hospitalized for confusion. The same week a doctor had documented that she was disoriented. I took photos of everything with my phone. Then I called Ruth back. They locked me out of her medical records, I told her. Ruth didn't sound surprised. We'll file a HIPAA authorization under your durable POA. Your POA predates theirs and names you as healthcare agent. The clinic is legally obligated to honor it. The system works, Miss Caldwell. Slowly, but it works. 9 days. That's how long I had. The closing was set for November 15th at Capital Title Services on Main Street, 3 blocks from the Briarwood Town Green. Diane had booked it like she was booking a dinner reservation. Efficient, final, not open for discussion. I sat in Ruth's conference room and laid out the options. Option 1, file an emergency petition with the probate court to block the sale. It would work, Ruth was confident, but it would be public, slow, expensive, and it would give Aaron and Diane time to scramble. Time to move, Lorraine. Time to hire their own attorney. Time to muddy the water. Option 2, let the closing happen. Walk in with the documents. Let the truth do what truth does when it meets paperwork that can't withstand it. If you show up at the closing with the recorded trust deed and the capacity evidence, Ruth said, the title company will do the work for you. They can't insure a title that's in dispute. They won't close the transaction. It ends in that room. I chose option 2. Not because it was easier, because Lorraine had written when they come for the house, not if. She'd wanted me at that table. The night before the closing, I sat with Lorraine in the living room. She was having a good hour. Not a good day, those were rare now, but a good hour. She was working on a crossword puzzle with her reading glasses perched at the end of her nose, filling in the squares with a ballpoint pen. No pencil, because she said pencils were for people who didn't trust themselves. Gran, tomorrow's going to be a big day. She didn't look up. 7 across. Legal instrument of protection. 5 letters, I smiled. Trust, she wrote it in. Smarty pants, I watched her hand. The pen moved slowly but with intention. The letters were small and careful. Not the looping confidence of 14 months ago, but not the collapse of the September signature either. Somewhere in between, a woman at the edge of the window still reaching for the glass. She put the crossword down and looked at me. You're staying. I'm staying. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out her reading glasses case, the leather one with the brass clasp she'd carried since I was a girl. She opened it, took out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to me. It was a note, written in her handwriting, shaky but legible, recent. For Nora, the keeper of the table. Below it, her signature. Not the strong one from last year. Not the broken one from September. A middle ground. Trembling, but intentional. Written by a woman who knew she was fading and wanted to leave one more mark while she still could. I'm not gone yet, she said. Capital Title Services occupied a single-story brick building on Main Street with tinted windows and a brass door handle polished to a mirror finish. I parked across the street at 1:45 p.m. Ruth pulled in beside me at 1:50. Nathan was already inside. We walked in together, Ruth with her briefcase, me with the manila folder. Conference room B was small. 10 chairs around an oval table, a water pitcher, a printer humming in the corner. Linda Yates, the escrow officer, was arranging documents in neat stacks at the head of the table. She looked up when we entered, glanced at Ruth, and paused for half a second. The kind of pause that meant she recognized the name. Adler? I didn't see your firm listed on this transaction. I represent the Lorraine E. Caldwell Revocable Living Trust, Ruth said. We have documents relevant to this closing. Linda Yates's pen stopped moving. Before she could respond, the door opened behind us. Diane came in first. Cashmere blazer. Church pearls. Her smile was already in position. Bright, social, the hostess arriving at her own party. Aaron followed in a tailored sport coat, his jaw set, a leather portfolio under his arm. Gregory trailed them, gray-faced, looking at the floor. Behind them came Brenda Voss, the realtor. Blonde highlights, kitten heels, a stack of closing documents fanned in her hand like a winning poker hand. And last, Daniel Fesci, the buyer's representative, in a navy suit and a no-nonsense expression. Diane saw me and stopped cold. Nora? She looked at Ruth, at the folder in my hands. Her smile didn't change, but the muscles underneath it did. What are you doing here? Taking a seat, I said. I sat down at the table. Ruth sat beside me. I placed the manila folder in front of me, centered and square, and I waited. The room went very quiet. The printer had stopped humming. Linda Yates looked at Ruth. You said you have documents. I do. Ruth opened her briefcase and laid 3 items on the table. One at a time, each centered, each square. The way you'd lay evidence before a judge. First, a certified copy of the recorded trust deed. This deed was recorded with the Briarwood Town Clerk on August 12th of last year. It transfers the property at 14 Oakwood Lane into the Lorraine E. Caldwell Revocable Living Trust. Ms. Caldwell is the successor trustee. Diane's smile fell, not all at once, but in stages, like a building losing floors. Second, the durable power of attorney naming me as Lorraine's agent. Executed on August 9th of last year. Notarized. Witnessed. Currently in effect. Aaron leaned forward. We have a more recent power of attorney that supersedes. Third, the physician's letter. A capacity evaluation by Dr. Helen Mercer, Lorraine's neurologist, dated August 9th. It confirms that Lorraine had full testamentary capacity when she signed these documents. I also have Dr. Mercer's current evaluation, completed last week, confirming that Lorraine now lacks capacity. meaning any documents she signed after her cognitive decline, including the September power of attorney your family obtained, were signed without the legal competence required. To make them binding, the room went still. You could have heard a pin drop on that industrial carpet. Linda Yates picked up the trust deed. She read it. She compared it to the title report in her file. Then she looked at Brenda Voss. Ms. Voss, you informed me the trust had been dissolved. Brenda's face went white. Her mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. The trust was never dissolved, Ruth said quietly. The recorded deed confirms it. This property belongs to the trust. The sale cannot proceed. Linda Yates set the documents down. She squared her shoulders. And she said the 5 words that ended everything. I cannot close this transaction. Daniel Fesci closed his portfolio. Brenda stared at the table like it might open up and swallow her. Aaron gripped the armrests of his chair until his knuckles went white. Gregory never looked up from the floor. And Diane? Diane looked at me like I'd pulled the house out from under her feet with my bare hands. The silence lasted 4 seconds. Then Diane broke it. This is ridiculous. Diane's voice climbed an octave. She stood up, palms flat on the table, her pearls swinging. Nora is a paralegal. She has no authority. My husband is Lorraine's son, her only child, and he has a signed power of attorney that gives him full control. A power of attorney signed by a woman who was hospitalized for confusion the same week, Ruth said, even and measured. A power of attorney with no capacity evaluation attached. A power of attorney that, even if valid, does not grant authority over assets held in a trust. The house belongs to the trust. The trust is administered by the trustee. The trustee is sitting at this table. Aaron stood up too. His voice wasn't Diane's theatrical escalation. It was raw, primal. I have a $740,000 payment due in 6 weeks. If this deal falls through, Mr. Caldwell, your financial obligations are not this office's concern, Linda Yates said. This is my grandmother's house, I said. This is the trust's house, Ruth corrected gently. Administered by the trustee your grandmother appointed. That trustee is sitting at this table. Aaron turned on me. His face was red. His eyes were wet. You're going to destroy this family. Paragraph 27, what I said. I looked at my brother. I kept my voice at exactly the volume I'd practiced with Ruth. Conversational, steady, the same tone you'd use to read a grocery list. You tried to sell a 79-year-old woman's home while she sat alone on her birthday eating cake with her hands because nobody came to cut it for her. You had her sign legal documents during a hospital stay when a doctor had written down that she was disoriented. You lied to the title company about a dissolved trust that was never dissolved. And you're telling me I'm the one destroying this family? Aaron's mouth opened, closed. His fists were clenched at his sides. Diane was crying now, loud, messy sobs, the kind she deployed at dinner parties when the conversation wasn't going her way. After everything I've done for this family. Gregory sat motionless. He hadn't spoken since he'd walked into the room. He just stared at the trust deed, at his mother's signature, and I could see him doing the math in his head. She'd planned this. She'd gone around him. She'd looked at her only son and decided he wasn't enough. Paragraph 28, the aftermath in that room. Daniel Fesci stood up, buttoned his navy suit jacket. I think we're done here. He nodded to Linda Yates and walked out without looking at anyone else. Brenda Voss was already gathering her things, shoving documents into her leather tote, avoiding eye contact with everyone, her kitten heels clicking against the floor like gunshots. Ruth spoke into the quiet. For the record, an Adult Protective Services investigation into the financial exploitation of Lorraine Caldwell is currently active. The September power of attorney will be formally challenged. Any further attempts to sell, encumber, or transfer trust property without the trustee's authorization will be treated as a legal matter. Diane stopped crying. Just like that. Turned off like a faucet. She stared at Ruth, then at me. The tears still wet on her cheeks, but the expression underneath them shifting from grief to something harder. Something colder. You'll regret this, she said. When Aaron loses his company. When your father has nowhere to turn. When this family falls apart. You'll remember that you did this. I stood up. I picked up the manila folder and placed it carefully in my bag. I looked at my mother, at the cashmere, the pearls, the tears she'd learned to deploy like weather. You don't get to decide what she's worth, I said. Then I turned to Linda Yates. Thank you for your professionalism, Ms. Yates. Ms. Caldwell. She nodded. I'll be documenting this closing as void and flagging the file. You'll receive confirmation by email. Paragraph 29. What happened after. I walked out of conference room B. Ruth followed. Nathan held the door. The November air hit my face, cold and clean and sharp, and I stood on that sidewalk for 10 full seconds before I remembered to breathe. Ruth touched my elbow. You did well. I did what she asked me to do. That's what I mean. Aaron's balloon payment came due 8 weeks later, right on schedule. He missed it. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings on his development projects, 3 half-finished townhomes in Glastonbury, a commercial lot in Wethersfield. Aaron Caldwell Properties filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in January. He sold the German sedan. Last I heard, he was working as a project manager for someone else's firm, making about 1/3 of what he'd made before. He never called to apologize. Diane's standing in Briarwood fractured. Not all at once. Reputations erode slowly in small towns. But the story leaked. People talk. Aunt June talked. Linda Yates documented everything in the closing file. The church group chat went quiet around Diane. She stopped attending the library board. She and Gregory moved to a condo in West Hartford in the spring. My father emailed me once in March. 3 sentences. I should have done more. I know that now. I'm sorry. I read it twice. I didn't respond. Some apologies are too late to be anything but a record of what a person knows they should have said. Paragraph 30. The ending that matters. The court appointed me as Lorraine's legal guardian. I deferred the bar exam. I took a leave of absence from the firm. I moved into the guest room at 14 Oakwood Lane, the one with the ceiling crack I'd traced since I was 6, and I became the person who made sure Lorraine Caldwell ate dinner, took her medication, and sat on the porch in the afternoons when the light came through the hydrangeas. It wasn't the career step I'd planned. It was the right one. On a Tuesday in April, I baked a cake. Vanilla with buttercream. Nothing fancy. I set it on the kitchen table, the table from Bridgeport, the one that had survived 50 years of Thanksgivings and 1 attempted theft. Lorraine came in from the living room, crossword in hand. Whose birthday? Nobody's. It's Tuesday. We're having cake because it's Tuesday. She sat down. She picked up a fork. She took a bite and closed her eyes. This is my recipe, she said. It's good. She took another bite. Don't change it. We ate in the kitchen with the afternoon light striping through the window. The prism still hung above the sink, throwing small rainbows across the floor. The table held. A person's worth doesn't expire when their memory does, and the quietest love in a family is sometimes the only one keeping watch. If you made it to the end, you already know why I'm asking this. Hit that like button, subscribe to the Payback Vault, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting alone on their birthday with a cake nobody came to eat. And they need to know that one person showing up? That's enough. That's always been enough.